So today we're going to talk about ribbon, and ribbon is by far the thing that I get asked most about out of anything else on my blog. Well, Christmas tree ribbon, that is. So I'm going to go ahead and get out my ladder, and I'm going to get out my ribbon and kind of go through and show you the different types, and me and my baby bump will attempt to get up and do the ribbon on this big 9-foot tree. Okay, I pulled out some of the ribbon that I use on my different trees. I do tend to change my ribbon or alternate between the different trees just to kind of change things up a little bit. Ribbon's a really nice and inexpensive way to change up the look of Christmas decor without having to spend a lot of money. Ribbon adds a lot of texture to a tree. It can also add a lot of movement, and I'll kind of show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about when I actually get it on the tree. Just keep in mind, this is just a sampling of what I have. The ones that I actually use on the tree, I've already cut off of these spools, so I have them in a big bag. But I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about these first. The ribbon that I think is easiest to use on a tree is this wider, I don't even know how many inches that is. I would guess 4. This wider ribbon that has the wire. I have used thinner wire ribbon before. This one's probably about 3 inches. I don't like to go a whole lot smaller than that on this big tree just because, it's a 9-foot tree. So I kind of like to keep this, just because I like to keep the bigger scale of that ribbon. With that said, I think ribbon's actually really kind of hard to find. Most of these I'll link to my source page with all of the different sources. So I'm always kind of keeping an eye out for good ribbon to add to my Christmas trees. The ones that I like the best kind of have this like natural texture to them. They're not as shiny. I also like adding texture through ribbon. I feel like with all of the fancy mercury glass on my tree, it kind of tones it down a little bit and creates a nice balance. This one's a little more of a burlap too. But there really is no right or wrong when it comes to picking out ribbon for your tree. You can make pretty much anything work if it's a little bit on the thicker side. This is probably the thinnest I've gone. It's probably 2 inches. And as you can see, this one is not wired. So I'll show you my different technique that I use for the unwired ones and for the wired ones. My big ribbon bag, you can see there's really not much organization to it. I just kind of stuff all my ribbons in there at the end of every year when I'm packing everything up. So one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people don't want to cut into their ribbon, and they will take their big roll and they'll start at the top and they'll just kind of loop all the way to the bottom or loop around and around and around and around in the tree. I do mine a little differently, so that's the technique that I'm going to show you is kind of my way. Another thing that I've noticed a lot of people do is they put their ribbon on the tree first and then they put the ornaments on after that. And I actually do mine the other way. The first thing that I do when I'm putting ribbon on my tree is I take my spools and I cut the entire thing into 4 to 5, maybe even 6-foot sections. This one looks like it's about 5 feet. Then I start looking at about eye level, and this ornament right here is at my eye level. And I go just a little bit higher in this section, and that's where I will start with my ribbon. And then I will stick the ribbon, just kind of stick it in there like that. You can secure it with wire if you want to, I never do. Right in there, and then I just kind of bounce and stick it in again. It's hard to show with one hand kind of what I did, but you can see here, I just took it, stuck it in, and bounced it around. And I didn't go straight up and down. I kind of went off to the side a little bit. So then I will take this little section and I will bounce it kind of around like this, bounce it again, and stick it back in. Then I'm going to take my last piece here and kind of bounce it over this way diagonally, make sure it's sticking in. And you can see how much movement it already adds to the tree, even just with this one piece on there. And I really like the fact that it kind of goes in a zigzag instead of going completely just straight up and down. So usually from here, I just kind of look at the tree and decide where I want to do my next piece. I think a piece right here would be pretty. I also think a piece kind of coming this way would be pretty up on top. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more pieces. I'll show you on this piece that I just put in right here. I started over here, I bounced it this way and tucked it in here underneath this branch, and then I bounced it this way, kind of underneath this branch. One of the reasons that I do put my ribbon in last is because it's really easy to bounce it around the different branches and the ornaments. You can see I kind of did it around this ornament here. I guess I feel like it just highlights the ornaments and other decorations on the tree a little bit better to put your ribbon on last. I feel like most people do put their ribbon on first, and by the time that they are done putting the ornaments and everything else on the tree, and the ribbon's not in the same place anymore anyway. So by putting it on last, you can make sure that you're very intentional about where it ends up. Okay, I've added a few more. You can see I added this one up here, a little one over on this side, this one that kind of comes around the side, and then I need to add one kind of over here. I'm still tweaking it a little bit. There's something about this one down here that's bothering me. But I went ahead and added the ribbon up here and then some kind of down around the sides. I'm going to tweak this one a little bit more too. The biggest thing to remember is that you're trying to create movement in the tree. So you want the eye to go through like this and see all of your pretty ornaments. So when I do it, I kind of make sure that I'm bouncing around. So you don't want it to be perfect. You want it to kind of have those ripples. You want it to kind of bend underneath itself and just have a natural kind of flow to it. We just had a big storm roll in, so I just lost all natural light. It's so dark and cloudy outside. But here's kind of my finished or more finished tree. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Number one, nothing goes up and down or side to side directly. It all kind of goes at an angle. And then all of them are not going the same direction. They're not all going the same direction. They all kind of just bounce around the tree, kind of more whimsically. Again, what we're trying to do is create motion in the tree. So your eye goes around the whole tree. I honestly don't know if I'm going to keep this ribbon down here on this tree or not. I kind of like it. I usually have it upstairs on the toy tree in the kids' playroom, but I knew that the red would be easy to show you guys. We'll see. If you wanted to add another ribbon to the tree, this point, when I add more ribbon, I don't like to put it in just all of the negative spaces. I like to kind of group it in with the ribbon that's already there, and I'll just show you. So if you want to add a second ribbon, what I usually do is I run it kind of bouncing along, not perfectly, but kind of sort of along with the other pieces that are already on the tree. I like it when the ribbons group together so that there is still some negative space for those ornaments to really pop still, if that makes sense. I think I'm just going to leave the one ribbon for now. So if you remember yesterday when we talked about ornaments, I had mentioned that I reserved some of the smaller ones. This makes it look like I have a ton left. But I reserved some of the smaller ones to kind of fill in the holes after I get my ribbon in. And so I'm going. And it's really hard to see my ornaments now that the light has gone away. Let me see if this helps. No, I don't know if that helps or not. But it's hard to see all the ornaments that are on here, but there's a couple of little holes that I'll probably try and fill in. But I'll just go ahead and hang a couple here and there where it looks like I have, little holes. And then it'll just kind of help fill it in. I got a couple of messages from people who were concerned that the ornaments don't really show on this tree. And I wish that my phone would do it justice, because in real life it's so sparkly and pretty with all of the mercury glass on there. If you have ribbon that doesn't have wire in it, or thin, smaller ribbon, like my next picture I'll show right here, I'm going to show what I usually do with that. I'll just show how I did that right here on top of this ribbon, just because it's easier. But I just take it and start the same way as the other ribbon, just kind of tuck it in, and then allow it to kind of loop its way around. I don't manipulate it too much. I kind of just turn it around and around and let it sit where it goes. So I get the look of that tree that I showed you in that other picture, just that way. You can kind of see it's not perfect. I mean, it's just kind of laying where it's laying. I really love the way that that technique looks too, just because it's very casual and it has a lot of movement. It's pretty easy. I think it's really pretty, and I think there's a lot of ribbons that don't have wire that are really beautiful that would work. And if I were doing this throughout my whole tree, either by itself or with the other wired ribbon that I already used, I would use the same types of tips. I would do things on the diagonals. I would create a lot of movement and go around. I would also do this style of ribbon after my ornaments around the tree. All different techniques, I always do the ribbon after the ornaments. And then the other thing, start at eye level and work your way up and around the tree. One more technique that I wanted to mention is especially good if you are intimidated by ribbon or if you can't ever get it to sit exactly the way that you want it. Just take a few pieces of your ribbon, the lengths of ribbon that we talked about, and grab it in the middle. Now, if you leave your lengths longer, you can tie a big bow over here. You can do kind of just a loop thing. Let me show you what I like to do with it. I like to kind of create a little bit of a loop, and then you would just take this, I'm really losing light here, and just stick it in the tree. And you can wire that too. And then you'll just kind of fluff it and make it. And then you can just repeat that all over the tree in any of the little negative spaces or spaces where you want ribbon. You could use as many different kinds of ribbon or lengths of ribbon as you wanted to, if you wanted a bigger type of bow on the top, or you can leave the tails longer and then do your little loop and then have your tails kind of going in and out like I showed you earlier. This one's really, really pretty, especially if you have some big ball ornaments next to your, like the clustering of ornaments that we talked about yesterday. This is really pretty to put in with those clusters. So that's how I do my ribbon. Again, just like with the ornaments, it's just best to not overthink it. To just go at it, do it, and not tweak it too much afterwards if you can help it.